I'm fired up about OGs, just like I'm fired up about, again, the ascension of Michael Wilson. Again, we've been talking about it all week. I've been on, as you have, a bunch of NFL preview shows as we get ready for training camp. And people have been asking me, like, who's the breakout candidate? I'm like, Michael Wilson. And so even with that, and we're the bandwagon drivers of MHJ and Michael Wilson as a top tandem in the NFL, there are still some out there who are uneducated. And it's like this from Talladega Nights. I don't know what to do with my hands. I don't know what to do with the Cardinals or Kyler Murray or Marvin Harrison Jr. or, in this case, Michael Wilson. This came across the Twitter streets yesterday, Bo, from FanDuel. They ranked every quote-unquote number 2 receiver in the NFL. Damon, I know you had a lot of issues with this list. Just take this in, chat, because one of the most egregious rankings, Michael Wilson, 28th overall in the NFL.
This is why my betting allegiance is to BetMGM.
Correct.
I mean, this is just one of many reasons why you don't want to go with FanDuel, because when you look at this chart, it just screams the person who put it together was a lazy unknower of ball. Like, this is just brutal. Egregious when you see some of the names ranked ahead of Michael Wilson, who you pointed out, Johnny, basically is just ahead of first-year players in Roman Wilson and Jalen Polk. And then you got guys like primarily a special teamer, Marvin Mims Jr. and Rashad Bateman, who's going to play himself out of league potentially this year. It's brutal. I mean, we'll talk about it a little bit more, but there's a ton. There's at least maybe half of these guys that I would take Michael Wilson over.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be fun to go over like who we would take that are above him, to be honest with you. Because I look at this and I got easy. Like, Jameson Williams done nothing. Darius Slayton, absolutely. I take him over Dotson. I take him over Mooney. I take him over Christian Watson. He played on the same team as Hollywood and was essentially about as equal to him. But one's a rookie and one's
than Hollywood.
Supposed to be a star player. Jerry Jeudy, not very good. Curtis Samuel at 14 might be the most egregious ranking on the entire
That's so
list.
bad. He was like wide receiver 5 with Washington. And just because he's playing with Josh Allen now, he's like, he and Keon Coleman are going to light the world on fire. This list is just horseshit. And again, it shows the uneducated. It's like, let's just put the Cardinal guy ahead of the rookies because whatever. We don't know what we're doing. I guess Rashad Bateman's on there. But Darrell Mooney hasn't been good in 3 years. I think you mentioned it, like Keenan Allen to me is one of the most overrated. He's like 2 years away from, people are saying, retirement. Chris Godwin, they said, could be cut after this year for Tampa Bay. Mike Williams is on a 1-year flyer. Like, when you're betting stocks, when you're investing, you want to get something on the rise, right? Something undervalued. I look at this list. Jameson Williams was a first-round pick. Michael Wilson played as well, if not better, than most of the wide receiver rookie class last year. I think it was leading it through like 7 weeks. Those are ascending players. There's no world that I would want bum-ass Mike Williams, Curtis Samuel, or Adam Thielen. Jacoby Myers with Aiden O'Connell is better than Kyler Murray and Michael Wilson. That's what this list is telling you.
Adam Thielen, this is the one. There's a couple themes going on in this list, right? Like, some guys are wide receiver 2 because, like you said, they're ascending players, and then there are guys that are descending, guys that had bigger roles, like Thielen, like Godwin, guys who are down, like on the like downslope of their career, where I think Michael Wilson, you can definitively say that he's on the rise. Like, what he was able to accomplish in his final 2 games with Kyler Murray and the camaraderie and rapport that they've developed since then throughout this offseason, it's undeniable. So Michael Wilson, like, you're not paying, like, it doesn't take much. It takes one Google search to really just kind of figure that out, but you're just not paying attention. You're being lazy. You're ill-informed on that, as far as Michael Wilson and what his trajectory is and what his role is going to be with this Arizona Cardinals team. But like, guys like Michael Wilson, Curtis Samuel, Adam Thielen being ahead of him, I mean, that's just, you just don't know ball. You're just being lazy. You're just looking at a box score. You're just looking at statistics from their career.
But you're not even doing that sometimes.
Right.
Like, Darius Slayton is awful. Look at his stats.
Yeah.
In what world is he a better wide receiver than Michael Wilson? Because he plays for the Giants?
Can we also say number 18 on that list? played with the Cardinals last year and was not better than Michael Wilson.
He
Hollywood
wasn't.
Brown was so far down the depth chart compared to Michael Wilson and his ability. Like, it's not, somebody needs to break that. But the people in Kansas City know, if Kansas City had the opportunity to take Michael Wilson or Hollywood Brown, they would take Michael Wilson easily.
The day, and I don't mean this to be so brutal, but it's been come off brutal. But the day that Michael Wilson arrived, San Francisco, 2 touchdown performance. If you look at the stats after that, that was the end of Hollywood Brown. Michael Wilson took over. It was Michael Wilson as the top wide receiver option for the Arizona Cardinals at that point, and then going forward. So if you're going to come out with a list, and sure, like it's appealing to see anybody go play with Patrick Mahomes, what Hollywood Brown's going to do, and we like Hollywood Brown. Like we said, one guy's ascending, one guy's descending. I'm taking Michael Wilson right now, today, and when is high on this list. I know you said Keenan Allen. I don't know if I'm prepared to say I'd take him over Keenan Allen right now. Keenan Allen's done a lot.
No. I think Keenan Allen's rated too high. I think Keenan Allen, it should be ahead of Michael Wilson.
But I will definitively say the highest guy in this list that I would take Michael Wilson over is Calvin Ridley.
Let's see the list one more time, David.
I think he was 8th.
That's a good question. Who's the highest player you would take over him?
Are we factoring in like contract and everything?
Yeah, for sure. That's
age really and everything.
Yeah, I would take him over everybody, probably 8th or lower, other than maybe Jordan Addison. Right,
because he's an ascending player. He was a rookie and he exploded. Yeah, he's an ascending player. Like Tyler Lockett, they're saying like he's going to be gone in Seattle after this year. Why? Because he's old. They've got DK Metcalf. They took Jackson Smith and Jigba. Like, he's going to be gone. Chris Godwin's going to be gone. I'm with Bo. I think Calvin Ridley easily. Give me Michael Wilson. Calvin Ridley had the most mid 1,000-yard receiving season of all time last year.
Calvin Ridley had a 1,000-yard receiving season last year and made $90 million on the free agent market this offseason, and is wide receiver 2 behind DeAndre Hopkins still.
Does anybody
what?
That and it showed you how desperate those teams were just to add anybody. New England and all those teams that needed a receiver. Does anybody think that Michael Wilson, and if Kyler Murray and Michael Wilson play 17 games together this year or 16 games, that Michael Wilson's not having 1,000 yards receiving this year? Like, I think that's one of the surest bets in the NFL this year. Even with Marvin, even with Trey McBride, if Michael Wilson plays 16 games and Kyler Murray plays 16 games, he will have a 1,000-yard receiving season. He's just going to have too many opportunities. Go look at that Seattle game where they were perfect together. And he cooked a Seattle secondary, coached by the great Pete Carroll, a couple of Devin Witherspoon guarding him, like pretty good. Hey, he looked pretty good in that game.
Well, when you look at this list, some of these guys are wide receivers 2s, and you're being, I think, really kind of nice with that and liberal with it, as far as they have limitations. Like, I don't see, outside of being able to get onto the field with Michael Wilson, any limitations in his game. Like Tyler Lockett, I think he's a really rock solid possession receiver, does some good things for Seattle, but there is a highlight reel where he's like negative yak. He catches the ball and falls down. Like Michael Wilson, you get the ball in his hands, he's going to be able to make a play afterwards. Michael Wilson is going to be able to go up and get a football. Like, he is, there's a ton of nuance and diversity to his game. He's got the physicality, the size that you want, where I see some guys, they just seem to have kind of a niche, and they have just can do one thing pretty well. To where obviously that's why they are wide receiver 2. That's their ceiling. Where I think Michael Wilson's going to push the envelope for being a wide receiver 2 and be maybe a 1B option in this wide receiver room.
Michael Wilson was 3rd in terms of total receiving yards plus what was your average in receptions. He averaged 14.9 yards of completion last year at 565 yards. that only trailed Tank Dell and then the Dontavion Wicks of the Packers, who was a nice player for them.
There's rookies.
Yeah, and Wilson, like Puka Nacua had 1,400 yards, but he averaged less yards per catch. Jordan Addison, 13. Jaden Reed, 12.4. Like Marvin Mims, yeah, he had 17 yards per catch, but he had almost 200 yards less. Like Quentin Johnston went in the first round, 431 yards, 11 yards per catch. Zay Flowers, who everybody loves, okay, had a ton of targets, 11 yards per catch. I mean, Jackson Smith and Jigba, who made monster plays at Ohio State, 10 yards per catch. Like, you want to talk about the perfect complement to MHJ. This is a chain mover plus. He's got big time, as my co-host said, yak ability, breaks tackles. Like, what have we seen before this for so long? Like, Rondale Moore's yak was non-existent. Rondale Moore's yards per catch was like the lowest in the history of football 2 years ago with Cliff Kingsbury. We have graduated from that point. Michael Wilson, again, it's like a stock. You just bet on it to explode because you look at the numbers and you say, okay, well, he gets Kyler Murray all year and he had big plays against good teams like San Francisco and his yards per catch is high and he was cooking with gas at the end of the year. It's one of the easiest players to telegraph this year. It's about health. He gets through training camp with K1. They're both healthy. He's going to have a monster year. Everybody's going to be saying, well, the Cardinals have 2 number 1 receivers because they do. Like, you can argue Greg Dortch, can he hold up in the slot all year? We're hopeful that he can. But, like, there is no doubt when people come onto the show or exteriors and they say, Cardinals really don't have a number 2 receiver. Do they even have a number 3 receiver? You just don't know football. You just don't.
We've got some content dropping. I think it's tonight, maybe over the weekend, about Michael Wilson. And it's just Kyler Murray talking about him, Jonathan Gannon talking about him. And, you know, Gannon saying he's a 3-position wide receiver still. Yeah. Like he can still run any route tree that you need him to run. Like he gave an example in practice where Marv was getting a breather on the sideline. Mm-hmm. So you had Michael Wilson slide over from Z to X. And then there was a play that was designed to have Kyler Murray. His first read was not going to be Michael Wilson, but he found Michael Wilson regardless because he won his matchup. And Michael Wilson consistently last year was winning his one-on-one matchups and understands that, how important that is. You know, it's it really is going to come down to it. And the same thing goes for his quarterback, staying healthy, staying on the football field. But if he does, those numbers, like he told you and I draft night, if he plays most of the games, he's going to be able to match and exceed any number you predict or project for him.